mean? So general purpose computing is going to go to accelerated computing. Our partnership with Intel is recognizing that general purpose computing needs to be fused with accelerated computing to create opportunities for them. Mm-hmm. Is that right? Mm-hmm. And so one, general purpose computing is shifting to accelerated computing and AI. Two, the first use case of AI is actually already everywhere. Right. It's in search, recommender engines. Isn't that right? In shopping. The basic hyperscale computing infrastructure used to be CPUs doing recommenders, is now going to GPUs doing AI.
Right. That we as a country could have, under the guise of somehow trying to slow them down, is we've unilaterally disarmed, we've forced Nvidia out of China, which has allowed Huawei to accelerate on the back of monopoly profits within China. And I just saw this morning, you're seeing announcements out of Huawei and Baba and others that they're going to build data centers around the world now. Huawei has a 3-year plan to pass Nvidia, funded by the monopoly profits in the biggest AI market in the world. So it's looking like your admonition that this is a huge mistake to hand China, monopoly markets is coming true. The president said, after kind of the ban on H20s, now we have a situation where you can sell, chips to China, but there's a 15% export tax. But now it appears that the Chinese, perhaps offended by statements out of the United States, are saying, no, NVIDIA is not allowed to sell here now. Where do we stand today between NVIDIA and China?
The computing world is undergoing its biggest shift since the Industrial Revolution. Jensen Huang, CEO of Nvidia, lays out why general-purpose CPUs are finished and why accelerated computing plus AI factories will dominate the next decade. Inside this video, you'll learn how trillions in global infrastructure are being rebuilt for AI, why adding a 10K AI to a 100K employee can 3x productivity, how China's AI push could reshape the global tech race, why America's national treasure industry must compete worldwide.
So the first point, and this is the laws of physics point, this is the most important point, that general purpose computing is over, and the future is accelerated computing and AI computing. Yeah. That's the first point. And so the way to think about that is there's how many trillions of dollars of computing infrastructures in the world that has to be refreshed.
Right. And when it gets refreshed, it's going to be accelerated computing.
That's right. And so the first thing you have to realize is that general purpose computing, and nobody disputes that. Everybody goes, yeah, we completely agree with that. General purpose computing is over. Moore's law is dead. People say these things. And so what does that mean? So general purpose computing is going to go to accelerated computing. Our partnership with Intel is recognizing that general purpose computing needs to be fused with accelerated computing to create opportunities for them. Mm-hmm. Is that right? Mm-hmm. And so one, general purpose computing is shifting to accelerated computing and AI. Two, the first use case of AI is actually already everywhere. Right. It's in search, recommender engines. Isn't that right? In shopping. The basic hyperscale computing infrastructure used to be CPUs doing recommenders, is now going to GPUs doing AI. Right. So you just take classical computing, it's going to accelerated computing and AI. You take hyperscale computing, it's going from CPUs to accelerated computing and AI. And then now that's the second point. Just feeding the Metas, the Googles, the ByteDances, the Amazons, and take their classical, traditional way of doing hyperscaling and moving it to AI, that's hundreds of billions of dollars.
And because that may be 4 billion people on the planet today, if you take TikTok, Meta into account, Google into account, who are already demanding workloads that are driven by accelerated computing.
That's exactly right. And so without even thinking about AI creating new opportunities, it's about AI shifting how you used to do something to the new way of doing something. Okay. And then now let's talk about the future. Yeah. So far I've only spoken kind of largely about just mundane stuff. Just mundane stuff. The old way is now wrong. You're no longer going to use fuel light lanterns. You're going to go to electricity. That's all. Right. Okay. And you no longer, prop planes, you're going to go to jets. That's all. And so, so far, that's all I've talked about. And then now that the incredible thing is when you go to AI, when you go to accelerated computing, then what happens? What are the new applications that emerge as a result? And that's all the AI stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And that's that opportunity. What is it? What does that look like? Well, the simple way of thinking about that is where motors replaced labor and physical activity, we now have AI, these AI supercomputers, these AI factories that I talk about. They're going to generate tokens to augment human intelligence, right? And human intelligence represents what? 55, 65% of the world's GDP. Let's call it $50 trillion. And that $50 trillion is going to get augmented by something. And so let's come back to a single person. Suppose I were to hire a $100,000 employee and I augmented that $100,000 employee with a $10,000 AI.
Yes. And
that $10,000 AI, as a result, made the $100,000 employee twice more productive, 3 times more productive. Would I do it? Right. Heartbeat. Yeah. I'm doing it across every single person in our company right now, right?
They all have co-agents.
That's right. That's right. Every single software engineer, every single chip designer in our company already has AIs working with them. 100% coverage.
Yeah.
As a result, the number of chips we're building is better. The number is growing. The pace at which we're doing it is right. And so we're growing faster as a company. As a result, we're hiring more people. Our productivity is greater. Our top line is greater. Our profitability is greater. What's not to love about that? Yeah. Now, apply the Nvidia story to the world's GDP.
Yeah.
And so what's likely to happen is that $50 trillion is augmented by, let's pick a number, $10 trillion. Right. That $10 trillion needs to run on a machine. Now, the reason that AI is different than IT in the past, in a way, software was written a priori, and then it runs on a CPU. And a person would operate it. In the future, of course, AI is generating tokens, but a machine has to generate the tokens and it's thinking. So that software is running all the time. Whereas in the past, the software was written once. Now the software is in fact writing all the time. It's thinking. Yeah. In order for the AI to think, it needs a factory. And so let's say that $10 trillion of token generated, 50% gross margins, and 5 trillion of it needs a factory, needs an AI infrastructure.
Right.
So if you told me that on an annual basis, the CapEx of the world was about $5 trillion, I would say the math seems to make sense.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the future, right?
Yeah.
Going from general purpose computing to accelerated computing, replacing all the hyperscales with AI, and then now augmenting human intelligence for the world's GDP.
And today that market is our estimate is about 400 billion annually.
Yeah.
So the TAM, is a 4 to 5x increase over where it is today.
Yeah. Eddie Wu at Alibaba said between now and the end of the year, now and the end of the decade, they're going to increase their data center power by 10x.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
You just said how much?
4x.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah.
They're going to increase power by 10x. And we correlate the power. NVIDIA's revenue is almost correlated to power.
Yes.
Isn't that right? Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Because
another thing, what else did he say?
Yeah.
He said token generation is doubling every few months.
Yeah.
What's that saying? The perf per watt has to keep on going exponentially. That's why NVIDIA is like cranking it out with perf per watt. And revenue per watt is, watt is basically revenues in this future.
Embedded in this assumption, I find it very fascinating in historical context. Right, for 2,000 years, basically GDP did not grow. Okay, and then we get the Industrial Revolution, GDP accelerates. We get the Digital Revolution, GDP accelerates. And it basically what you're saying, and Scott Bessent said it. He said, I think we're going to have 4% GDP growth next year. Basically what you're saying is the world's GDP growth is going to accelerate because now we are giving the world billions of coworkers that will do work for us. And if GDP is an amount of output for a fixed amount of labor and capital, it has to accelerate.
It has to.
Right.
It has to. Look at what's going on with AI. As a result of the technology of AI, and that technology of AI, let's just call it the large language models and all the AI agents, it's now creating a new industry of AI agents. There's no question about that. Okay, so that's OpenAI is the fastest growing revenue company in history,
Right.
and they're growing exponentially, right? And so AI itself is a fast growing industry. Because of AI, needs a factory behind it,
Right.
an infrastructure behind it. This industry is growing. My industry is
Yes.
growing, and because my industry is growing, the industry underneath it is growing. Energy is growing.
Right. Power, shell,
This is
demand.
this is like renaissance for the energy industry, isn't that right? Nuclear energy, gas turbines. I mean, look at all of those companies in the infrastructure ecosystem underneath us. They're doing incredibly well. Everybody's growing.
Jensen Huang's message here is nothing short of a wake-up call. He is saying that the age of general-purpose computing has ended and that the next industrial revolution is accelerated computing plus AI computing. Think about it. Trillions of dollars of servers, data centers, and CPUs built over decades are all due for refresh. When that refresh happens, it will not be the same old chips. It will be GPUs and accelerated AI factories. Huang explains that this isn't a debate anymore. Everyone in the industry knows Moore's law is finished. The hyperscale players, Meta, Google, ByteDance, Amazon, are already swapping out classical CPUs for AI-driven GPUs. This is exactly like moving from propeller planes to jets or lanterns to electricity. It sounds mundane, but the productivity jump is explosive. Huang even illustrates how adding a $10,000 AI to a $100,000 employee can multiply output by 2 or 3 times. Inside Nvidia, they already have 100% AI coverage for engineers and chip designers. More productivity, more chips, more hiring, more profits. Multiply that model across the entire $50 trillion of human intelligence-driven GDP, and you start to see a new economic era forming. This is why the AI factory concept matters. If accelerated computing is the new electricity, the question becomes, who will own the grid, especially in the world's largest AI market, China?
So now let's talk about China. What most people may not realize is I think you understand China as well as any leader in the United States.
We've been there for 30 years.
Been there for 30 years. What most people don't realize is up until a couple of years ago, you had dominant market share within China in terms of
95% market share.
95% market share in the most important thing, arguably. And you have said that our biggest own goal that we as a country could have, under the guise of somehow trying to slow them down, is we've unilaterally disarmed. We forced Nvidia out of China, which has allowed Huawei to accelerate on the back of monopoly profits within China. And I just saw this morning, you're seeing announcements out of Huawei and Baba and others that they're going to build data centers around the world now. Huawei has a 3-year plan to pass Nvidia, funded by the monopoly profits in the biggest AI market in the world. So it's looking like your admonition that this is a huge mistake to hand China, monopoly markets is coming true. The president said, after kind of the ban on H20s, now we have a situation where you can sell, chips to China, but there's a 15% export tax. But now it appears that the Chinese, perhaps offended by statements out of the United States, are saying, no, NVIDIA is not allowed to sell here now. Where do we stand today between NVIDIA and China? And can you reiterate kind of what you think we as a country should be doing to put ourselves in the best position to win the AI race around the world?
We have a competitive relationship with China. We should acknowledge that China rightfully should want their companies to do well. I don't for a second begrudge them for that. They should do well. They should give them as much support as they like. It's all their prerogative. And don't forget that China has some of the best entrepreneurs in the world because they came from some of the best STEM schools in the world. They're the most hungry in the world.
Yes.
996, as you know. Mm-hmm. This is a very...
Producing the most AI engineers in the world.
996, so the audience knows, 9 in the morning to 9 at night, 6 days a week. Yeah. That is their culture. Yeah. Okay? We're up against a formidable, innovative, hungry, fast-moving, under-regulated.
Yeah.
Okay, people don't realize this. They are very lightly regulated.
Right. Less regulated,
Way less-
ironically, than we are
That's
in a
right.
capitalist system.
That's right. People think that they're centrally governed, but remember, the genius of China was distributed economic systems.
Yeah.
And so all of these 33
Province.
provinces and all the mayor economy has driven enormous amount of internal competition, internal economic vibrancy, which of course has some of its side effects, but this is a vibrant, entrepreneurial, high-tech, modern industry. And some of the things I heard, they could never build AI chips. That just sounded insane. 2, that China can't manufacture. China can't manufacture? If there's one thing they could do is manufacture. 3, they're years behind us. Is it 2 years, 3 years? Come on, they're nanoseconds behind us.
Nanoseconds.
Yeah, they're
behind us.
nanoseconds behind us. And so we've got to go compete.
Yeah.
We've got to go compete. And so the question then becomes, what's in the best interest? What's in the best interest of China, of course, is that they have a vibrant industry. They also publicly say, and rightfully, I believe they believe this, is that they want China to be an open market. They want to attract foreign investment. They want companies to come to China and compete in the marketplace.
Right.
And I believe that I hope that we'll return to that in our context, answering your question, what do I see in the future? I do hope, because they say it, their leaders say it, and I take it at face value, and I believe it because I think it makes sense for China, that what's in the best interest of China is for foreign companies to invest in China, compete in China, and for them to also have vibrant competition themselves.
Yeah.
And they would also like to come out of China and participate around the world. Yeah. That is, I think, is a fairly sensible outcome. And what we need to do as a country is to enable our technology industry, which today is I'm privileged to be working in an industry that is our national treasure. We have to acknowledge it is our national treasure. It is our best industry. It is our single best industry.
Yeah.
Why would we not allow this industry to go compete for its survival? For this industry to go and proliferate the technology around the world so that we could have the world be built on top of American technology, so that we can maximize our economic success, maximize our geopolitical influence, maximize this technology industry during such a vibrant time, such a pivotal time, to allow it to thrive.
The skeptic says, Jensen just wants to sell more chips, and if he can sell them to China, great, he'll sell them to China. He doesn't care about, what that means for America. That's the skeptic. No,
Can I just address the skeptics?
Yeah.
Just because I want America ecosystem and economy to grow, it doesn't make me wrong.
Right.
Okay. So first of all, everything that has been said so far, that's been made up so far about China has proven to be wrong. The facts are just wrong.
Right.
The ground truth is wrong. And so just because we want America to win, just because we want this industry to grow, doesn't make me wrong.
Correct.
And I think anybody who knows you, and now the president, certainly myself, you deeply care about the country. You deeply want the United States of America to win the global AI race. You just happen to believe, and I think you have as much experience or more experience than anyone, that it inures to our advantage. The probability of us winning the global AI race actually goes up if you are competing in China.
That's right.
Because it allows us to tap into half of the world's AI engineers, keeping them, in this ecosystem. And let's be clear, with the companies we're talking about here, ByteDance, Alibaba, et cetera, these are companies that are largely owned by American investors.
Yeah, right.
Right? These are global companies
That's right.
that are building recommender engines.
And by the way, extraordinary technologies.
Incredible companies. And so I think, and I'm hopeful, that the argument that you're making vis-a-vis China, which is a harder argument than diffusion to the rest of the world, I understand that. And that's why I thought when the president said, I don't know, it's a flip of a coin. Maybe Jensen's right. Maybe the other guys are right. But if Jensen's willing to put a little bit of 15% into the U.S. Treasury as a hedge on that, then I'll go for it. But I was really disappointed on the heels of that. I think if the Chinese feel like they're being taken advantage of, that we're going to send them chips that are 10 years old or something, then I get why they had that response.
H20 is really quite spectacular still, and
Yeah.
of course it's not as good as Blackwell, and I get that.
Yeah.
I'm patient, and I believe that they're wise, or they're thinking through their situation. They have larger agendas to deal with, vis-a-vis the United States. There are a lot of discussions going on, but I'll come back to the ground truth, fundamental truth. I believe that it is in the best interest of China that Nvidia is able to serve that market and compete in that market. I fundamentally believe it's in the best interest of China. It is, of course, in the fantastic interest of the United States.
Yeah.
It is but those two truths can coexist. It is possible for both to be true, and I believe it is both true.
Here, Jensen Huang pivots to the geopolitics of AI, and it's just as electrifying. He points out that until a few years ago, Nvidia held 95% market share inside China, the biggest AI market on Earth. Then, under U.S. restrictions, that advantage was handed to Huawei and others, who are now using monopoly profits to fund their own massive data center build-outs worldwide. Huang isn't naive. He openly acknowledges that China's entrepreneurs are world-class, work 9 to 9-6, and operate in a lightly regulated, hyper-competitive ecosystem. He mocks the old myths. They can't build AI chips. They can't manufacture, calling them nanoseconds behind, not years. His argument is clear. The U.S. strengthens its own position not by retreating, but by competing in China, tapping into half the world's AI engineers and ensuring the global stack is built on American technology. This isn't just about selling more chips. It's about economic scale, geopolitical influence, and keeping U.S. leadership at the center of the AI revolution. Huang believes it's in China's best interest to remain open to foreign investment and in America's best interest to let its national treasure industry compete globally. That double truth can coexist, and if it does, it accelerates the entire AI economy rather than splitting it. If you found this breakdown of Jensen Huang's vision eye-opening, hit subscribe and like right now, so you don't miss the next deep dive on the future of AI, accelerated computing, and global tech competition.